Good evening and welcome back to the Psychology of Organizational Development. Today, we'll be learning about goal setting for effective organizations. This covers chapter 12 of your textbook, An Experiential Approach to Organizational Development. So the broad direction of an organization is found in its mission, values, and vision. Mission is about what we're doing, making widgets, delivering lectures, granting undergraduate degrees, selling shoes. Values is about how we're doing it. Is it with integrity? Is it in a way that stewards the earth? Is it in a way that shows people that we care about them? And then vision is ultimately about why we're doing it. What are we trying to achieve with all this? Who do we want to be in the world? What kind of a world are we trying to create? So those are your big questions for the organization. I'm going to borrow this chariot metaphor of career from our unit on vocational psychology and apply it to the organization. Goals are the steps along that path to achieving the vision, or that are in the direction of the vision. Goals are the steps along the path that is guided through uncertain terrain with that true compass of values. You'll remember this as well, adaptability. So what is adaptability? Adaptability is what leads us to success and to resilience. And it is the readiness to leverage our resources, to use our resources in ways that achieve our desired results. It's about prudent action towards a worthy goal. So your responses are your actions, and those actions should be adaptive towards achieving your goal. And we're assuming that this is a worthy goal. Is your goal adaptive or maladaptive in the context of your bigger picture, your vision, values, mission? It's another question that you can ask. So a goal refers to what you're trying to accomplish. There's a defined outcome. The goal is the object, the reason for your actions. Your actions are trying to accomplish that goal, or you are trying to accomplish that goal through your actions. Your actions may be adaptive or maladaptive given that goal, and that goal may be adaptive or maladaptive given your bigger picture vision. The goal exists within a larger organizational context, and that ultimately that social context determines the desirability of the goal. There'll be some kind of a moral framework ultimately. So if you have an individual goal that has to align, be acceptable to, say, the team that you work with, the team goal or the department goal, and then those group goals also have to align with the organizational goals at the highest level. And then the organizational goals have to align with the goals expectations of the broader society. So if you had a company that had the goal of massacring as many children as possible, that just wouldn't go down well with people. You can't do that. So ultimately, your goals have to be acceptable in a larger social context, according to some moral framework. So what do we know about goals from researching goal setting? Well, really easy goals don't improve performance. So let's say that the goal you set yourself was put on pants in the morning. It's not going to make a difference, is it? You want your goal to be challenging. It should be a bit of a stretch. And the goal should be specific. It's not enough to say, well, just do your best. What does that mean? If your goal is too hard, You're going to take it out of the area of challenge and put it in the area of stress. And I think I forgot to bring my pens with me, so I can't write on the board. But what I was going to explain was that something is challenging if it is within the area of your resources. So if you can achieve this goal leveraging your individual resources and your social resources, your organizational resources, okay, great, that's a challenge. But let's say you set a goal that's too high, that overwhelms your resources. Now that's just stressful, and you're guaranteeing failure. So don't make your goals too hard. And what is too hard? It's overwhelming your capacity. And if you set goals for yourself or for others that are too hard, they're too overwhelming, that are not within your capacity to achieve, then you can expect that people will give up, or they might fail and then develop low self-efficacy. Don't go down that path. Okay, so goals should be challenging, but not impossibly so. Getting people to participate in setting the goal increases their commitment to the goal. You'll notice that in this class, assuming that you observe my 24-hour deadline rule, you can set all the deadlines, right? You choose it. And are you going to be, well, I'd expect you to be more committed to achieving that deadline than if I just impose them on you. Because when I come up with those deadlines in the syllabus, do those work for you? I don't know anything about your life, right? That you have no chance to participate in it. So I hope that allowing you to participate in the setting of deadlines will help you achieve your goals along the way to completing this course successfully. There's another thing that increases commitment to goals, and it's owning them and sharing them with others. So let's say you have a goal that you are going to go to bed by 10 p.m. every night. I don't know, anything, whatever it might be. You're more likely to achieve that if you make a public commitment to it, if you tell your friends that you're trying to do that, you tell your family that you're trying to do that, versus keeping it to yourself, which is something a lot of people do if they fear failure. You might be afraid to tell somebody about your goals because you think that then they'll see you trip up, or maybe they'll hold you to account and you don't really want that, blah, blah, blah. But in fact, if you identify your goals to other people in your life, they might be quite likely to support you, to maybe give you some tips. And they might think, okay, I know that Sam wants to go to bed by 10, so let's not schedule the party for 11 p.m. Maybe we'll start earlier. It gives other people a chance to help you out. It also becomes part of your social identity that you're constructing. So once you've said this, and once you've presented yourself as this person that goes to bed at 10 p.m., then you might be more motivated to live in a way that upholds that. Because if your behavior doesn't match your social identity that you're constructed, you might feel some tension, some cognitive dissonance, and then you might be motivated to reduce that dissonance, that distressing dissonance, by actually becoming what you said you are. So there's a tip. Okay? If you have a goal and it's a good goal and a reasonable goal, then go ahead and commit to it to others. Goals that reflect good goal setting are known as SMART goals. And what do I mean by good goal setting? I mean effective, functional. This is likely to work. And then goals that reflect sort of bad goal setting are called VAPID goals. And what do I mean by bad goal setting? I mean ineffective, dysfunctional, likely to lead to failure. So let's learn about SMART goals and VAPID goals. So SMART goals are specific. Be clear and specific about what the goal is so that you can go achieve it. Knowing what it is will definitely help you get it done. They should be measurable. There should be some, be it qualitative, be it qualitative, way that you can tell whether or not you're achieving this, and that gives you a sense of what your progress is. And you also know when the goal is complete. So let's say your goal is to develop the habit of going to bed by 10 p.m. You could say that you've developed that habit after, let's say you've done it 4 out of, let's say 6 out of 7 days a week for 4 weeks. See if you did that. Right? You need something, need to specify it or in such a way that you can tick that box and say, yeah, I did that. So you need a measure in order to do that. The goal should be actionable. Can you take some kind of action to achieve this goal? And those actions need to be things that are reasonably under your control. And going to bed by 10 p.m. is absolutely an actionable goal. There's all kinds of things that you can do in order to achieve that, like turning your screens off an hour before. That would definitely help. Setting up your sleep hygiene, putting your pajamas on and brushing your teeth by then. That'll help. So there's things that you can think of, there's actions that you can think of that will help you achieve this. Your goals need to be realistic. A lot of people set unrealistic goals. A lot of teams do, a lot of organizations do. And then, when you think of, you realize that this is your capacity and that's the goal, looking at that, you're going to feel overwhelmed and stressed and might rationally give up. And then your goal needs to be time bound. And what does that mean? It means you set yourself a date to achieve this. So maybe, let's say we're using the example of this going to bed by 10 p.m. thing. You want to achieve this, say, by the end of the year. And that helps you stay focused and motivated. And that date shouldn't be too far out. It's not like you're going to achieve this by, in the next 20 years. So think on the order of weeks, maybe of months. Sometimes years are appropriate. Maybe in university, your goal is to graduate with your degree in 4 years. Okay, but keep it reasonably proximal to your greatest extent. Now, in this poster, the R stands for realistic. You'll also hear relevant. So what does relevant mean? From an organizational context, here they're saying, does it contribute to your agency's revenue growth? Does it support the bottom line? So you could have a SMART goal in your organization that is about, I don't know, the Christmas angel giving tree or raising money for some charity. And that could be a good goal in many ways, but you have to remember that in many cases, it's a business. How does this goal support the objectives of the organization? Going back to vocational psychology, your psychological sense of success, your personal sense of success, comes from setting and achieving personally meaningful goals, SMART goals, ones that resonate with your values. And if you do that, reasonable goal by reasonable goal, you might feel pretty good about what you're doing. And when you do that, the path develops as you develop, because your identity develops as you try things, as you explore, as sometimes you fail, you pick yourself up, you try again, you start to develop your skills and a sense of mastery. And that identity development can change the kinds of goals you set. Your goals and your goal setting will develop as you develop. So you might not get this quite right tomorrow, but keep trying, you will. Badly set goals are VAPID goals. They're vague. The target is unclear and the path is unclear. So you don't really know what you're doing or how to do it. They are amorphous. Target, the goalpost is shifty and poorly measured and poorly defined, so that you never know when you're actually achieving it. And badly set goals are also out of reach. They're pie in the sky. They're so big that in order to achieve them, you would have to considerably overestimate your capacity or capacities of the organizations and all your friends and all your family. They're way too big to achieve. So you'll definitely fail. And then they're delayed. There's no time frame for completion. So you're thinking you'll do this sometime when you feel confident enough, when circumstances are right. You want to set a good goal, you need to have a reasonable time frame. There's something in the textbook that I want to take a look at because it flagged my attention. I thought, I don't know about this. Looks like it could be some toxic academic culture. And there's plenty of that in an academic textbook. So I'm going to read this paragraph. There are some individual differences that should be considered in goal-setting programs. People with a strong need for achievement and with high self-esteem are more likely to commit themselves to difficult goals than people with a weak need for achievement and low self-esteem. I'm seeing right there is an insinuation that a need for achievement is good. And I've seen this in like my intro psych textbook. Achievement motivation is a great thing to have. And that high self-esteem is good. People are motivated by different things. Some people are very goal focused and achievement motivated. Some people are more relationship motivated. Some people know how to stop and smell the roses, and it takes all kinds to make a world. High self-esteem isn't good or bad. Neither is low self-esteem. In fact, you could say that humility is a virtue. What we do know from the research, though, is that the pursuit of self-esteem is maladaptive. If you were doing things, if you were engaging in performance in order to increase your self-worth, you're probably going down a dark path, because that path is based on conditional self-worth and chasing something, chasing performance. Maybe it's chasing money, maybe it's chasing approval, chasing something in order to feel like you're enough. And that just doesn't work. I think the evidence for that is overwhelming. Let's say that you base your self-worth on your appearance, on how good you look. You're going to pursue that. Well, now you're going to have to spend a lot of time shopping for clothes and going to the hairdresser, and you won't be able to walk past a reflective surface without noticing yourself and assessing yourself and how good you look. And if you see a photograph of yourself, the first thing you'll look for is yourself, and you'll be like, oh no, the way I look in profile. Okay, you'll spend time on that. Will that make you happier or more satisfied with your life? The research suggests a strong no. And this actually goes for academic motivation as well, and academic achievement. And so what's going to happen is that you sort of keep chasing that, and you'll never look quite good enough, and you'll always be comparing yourself to others, and you'll always be insecure about your appearance, and you'll condemn yourself to vanity. Seeking after status and wealth isn't any better. People who do that never make enough money. And they keep getting more and more things. But there's always going to be somebody else who has more. You can never win that game. It's always possibly not enough. And then how are you going to show up in the world if you do that? you've condemned yourself to snobbery. You might look down on people who who don't have such great wealth or status. And now consider achievement motivation. And I've seen many people like this, and I can assure you that sometimes it's not a very pretty picture. So let's say you're associating your self-worth with your performances, with your achievement. And you gotta win this competition. And you want to be with academics, it's getting things published in top tier journals, but they're never done. It's never enough. It's always the next thing. And it becomes this, like a treadmill. It never really stops. And engaging in achievement or pursuing achievement in order to increase your self-esteem is not a good path. But this paragraph insinuates or suggests that it is. And it suggests that having a weak need for achievement is kind of a low self-esteem-y thing. Let's keep reading. Commitment will not be forthcoming from people with a weak need for achievement simply because they have participated in setting their goals. Now, I didn't read that with quite the right cadence. I'm going to do it again. Commitment will not be forthcoming from people with a weak need for achievement simply because they have participated in setting goals. In all probability, only external reward or punishment will be successful in building commitment for people of this type. There's a reference there, and I haven't had the time to go look into it, but I'm a little skeptical. So somebody could not have a strong achievement motivation, but still agree that they want to do something and do it. Could be for some other reason. That might just be their job. They might just have a sense of duty or responsibility, but do they need to have achievements in order to have high self-esteem? I don't know. All right. On to some major findings of goal-setting theories. Well, feedback on your accomplishments, on what you did, improves performance. And then I added and highlighted in yellow that this assumes good quality feedback. You can get feedback that is abusive. You can get feedback that is unhelpful. If you do something and I say, good job, well, why is it a good job? What are you going to do with that? So there are criteria for good feedback, and you would want to help people understand what they did in their context. Why did that work? Why did that not work? And leave them something actionable so they can go do something differently if they need to, or keep doing what they're doing. And you have to support them so that they can act in the right way. So if you really cut somebody down and you take all the energy out of them and you kill their motivation with your feedback, well, that's not going to improve their performance. The book says that education and position in an organization does not predict success. What do they mean by that? They're saying that the goal setting works for everyone, and it's not just for the C-suite and the managers. However, typically goal setting in organizations and talent management in organization is really something that just targets the elite. Goal setting can happen in an organizational context, in team context, and in an individual context, but it's going to differ a bit depending on those contexts. So in a team setting, you'd be setting goals for the entire team that have to consider everyone's different roles and responsibilities and how those contribute towards the team goal. You might need buy-in from everyone on the team. And the support of management is critical for goal setting programs. commitment, the effectiveness of a goal setting program relies on mutual trust in and by upper management. That describes or assumes a psychologically safe and healthy workplace. In chapter 1 of this textbook, we learned that most organizations have some political dysfunction. But the more trust and the more safety, the better. You might not ever have perfect trust. So if you need trust, well, what should managers do? Be worthy of trust. And you can do that by being 3 things: competent, caring, and ethical. Engage people in the goal setting process so that they have a sense of ownership that motivates them, gets their buy-in. People who are closer to the ground can give you a lot of feedback on how achievable your goals are. Upper management can often, let's say they're in their ivory tower, they're up there above it all. They might have goals that are unreasonable or unattainable. And sometimes people are too scared to tell them that, but the people who have their boots on their ground know what is achievable and what's not achievable, or what needs to change if you want to achieve those things. And so you have to make it safe for people with less power to have those conversations with you. Should participate in or help people develop an action plan, but also understand that in a dynamic context, the goals and therefore the action plan may need to be continuously revised. It's no good if you sort of set a goal and then come up with an action plan and enforce the action plan when that was a good idea 3 months ago and now things have changed. You need to provide support for achievement of the goal. Give people the training they need, the resources that they need. Give them the space and the time to learn, maybe to mess up a bit, to try again, and provide good quality feedback. So give them a period of performance, where you can collect some data and then check in, see how that went, and give respectful, specific, actionable feedback that honors that person as an actor out there in the world. Maybe you'll provide some coaching or counseling, and these words come up a lot, and they mean different things. So what is counseling and what is coaching? These are both process interventions. Counseling, which tends to be the domain of vocational psychologists and career counselors, is about the why and the big picture and the existential stuff. Once that is sorted out and you have a sense of the path and where you're going, then you're ready for a coaching relationship. And that's where the wheels hit the ground, and you're going to focus on the nitty gritty and the nuts and the bolts of how to achieve that goal. Then you need to leverage incentives and disincentives and administer rewards for being on that path to achieving the goal appropriately, and punishment as well, right? If people aren't doing that, and there'd have to be some accountability. Managers often really don't do reward very well. Something that I really don't like to see and is all too common are these things like employee of the year, where there's some process, possibly an arbitrary one, probably a very political one. We pick one person and spotlight them, right? Give them the prize. And you know what you've just done? We've showered one person with with appreciation and praise, so they can stand there up on the stage and be like, oh, this is so wonderful. I'm so grateful. Really, I owe this all to my team. But you didn't actually, let's say there was a team effort. All those other people are sitting in the audience, probably, clapping, but feeling a little unappreciated. Another custom that I absolutely just don't understand, it boggles my mind, is when there's a team and then they choose one person who's the most valuable player. As in, like, if we got rid of everybody else, who would be key, it would be you, because you were the most, that's not how teams work. A team involves interdependent relationship with a number of people, and one of them isn't the star or the prima donna. We're taking credit for everything. Once you start going down that road, I have a sense that might be an unhealthy culture. In toxic systems, and many, if not most, systems are a little toxic, some are a lot toxic, competence and performance actually isn't what's rewarded. Sometimes rewards are more political than that, and the people that are rewarded are those who reliably support the interests of management. They might be the ones that do what we want, that help cover up, and it might be more about their loyalty than their actual competence in their job. And when other people in the organization who are trying to act competently and ethically see that happening, well, that can be very, very demoralizing. The textbook then discusses what is presented as a process for goal setting, but in reality, it may be many different things. So management by objectives is a goal setting technique. It's also known by other terms, like, let's say, target settings, but in practice, there are many different processes that people call MBO. So if you go and look for a paper that reviews the effectiveness of MBO programs, one of the first problems it's going to run into is, well, we found 100 of these different programs, but they're all kind of doing different things. The idea of MBO is to integrate individual and organizational goals. Remember how career development and organizational development need to be aligned? It's about that. This is based on management theory X, theory Y. So it's a system that is supposed to help in planning, organizing, problem solving, and motivating people. And it brings subordinates and their managers together in order to set, clarify, and agree on goals. And right off the bat, we have a power dynamics issue. But I'll get to that later. So the manager and the subordinate jointly identify the goals. What does that assume? That assumes that the subordinate is able to fully participate in identifying goals. And that almost assumes a relationship of equality, but actually you don't have that. And they should also agree on measurements that will be used as a guide. Ideally, once you do this at all levels, this should help clarify and integrate everyone's goals towards the greater good of the organization. It should help integrate goals and plans at all levels. And it should be very motivating to people, because now you've aligned their personal goals with organizational goals. So you want to go do that thing. So you get all kinds of engagement and buy-in. So here are the steps that are defined in your textbook. So it starts in step 1 with the subordinate proposing the goals. but we would assume that they would do this in a way that they realize would be generally acceptable to management. And then they're proposing ways to measure them, right? And the time period. And when I see this in my mind, you sort of think of, okay, let's say you have this meeting with your boss, and your boss is busy, too busy, and they're expecting you to come in with the draft. So then you talk about it, and the subordinate and superior jointly agree on the goals and how they're going to be measured. So you negotiate that a bit. I want to draw your attention to that language there, subordinate and superior. That's not a language of equality. If you're calling somebody superior, kind of sounds like they're more important and they matter more. And this, is the case in hierarchical relationships. So there's a period of performance. You go off and do that. And then you're going to want to check in and see how that went, get some feedback. They say that there should be one big annual meeting and then smaller meetings along the way so that you can correct course. And the book suggests quarterly. So that would be once every 3 months. Yes. And then you'd look at how things went and then set another goal and keep going. There are many criticisms of MBO, and the first criticism really is that we don't really know what we're talking about because there's so many things that people call MBO. It's something about goal setting, but the process that I described there is expensive and time consuming. That's a lot of meetings. So let's say that you've got your one big meeting and your 3 other meetings, that's 4 meetings. And maybe there's some back and forth correspondence and you're not your superiors, only subordinate. Let's say there's 10 of them. Oh, okay. So what is that? 40, 50 meetings, the issue. And so this is traditionally limited to the upper levels, the upper echelons of the organizations, where costs can be justified. What does that mean? Costs can be justified. So there's a cost in terms of time, and time is money, and doing this has to be justified in the business context. It needs to result in productivity, in earning rewards and earning profits that are greater than the cost of doing all that. So in the business context, we're not doing this out of a humanistic desire to develop people and their careers. It's for a bottom line reason. And so it's typically not seen with lower ranking employees who do routine jobs. And we're not seeing this with the shift manager at McDonald's and the cashiers. Even though we know that goal setting is pretty much good for everyone. The kind of goal setting and negotiation that we discussed really assumes that people are equals, that the one person's opinion matters as much as the other person's, and that there's a safe space and there's not going to be any kind of retaliation, blah, blah, blah. How realistic is that? So MBO assumes a hierarchical structure. You see that in the language of superior and subordinate and the lower and the higher levels of the organization. And then you're also describing a relationship dynamic of openness and sharing, and caring that you really sort of see between equals, almost between friends. If you set goals and make action plans that are too rigid, that's not adaptive in the end. You need to revisit and revise. The goals that you set together may not be good goals. They may not be adaptive goals. The measures that you select may not be the right measures. What if you fail to measure some things you should measure? MBO is known to have been used in ways that are coercive, as a form of discipline or punishment. Managers or superiors have been known to act in ways that sort of dictatorial. So maybe the lived experience of being a subordinate in an MBO program is not as described in the textbook. And some OD practitioners question if this really is an OD intervention, right? Is this performative OD, something that sounds like equality, but really isn't? OD as a discipline does have values of equality and empowerment, but this whole superior subordinate thing, how empowering is that for the lower ranking person? Can you see? Can you kind of smell a fish there? So what does the evidence say? Well, it's hard to know because we don't really, it's hard to do that review study because there's so many different things that people call MBO. There's so many different approaches, and so that creates a lack of consistency. There are stories of it leading to great success, and there are stories of it being coercive and terrible. So I think MBO is something that you should know about. Consider it an imperfect tool. It might be better than what you're doing, but that doesn't mean that it's good. So thank you for your attention. Are there any questions or comments about that? All right, so for next class, please read chapter 13 on work team development, and I look forward to seeing you then. And I will pause the recording here. And I'm now available for office hours for the next half an hour.